And that's it. There's another trick I want to show you around. This is around a shower fixture, so a shower valve in your shower, right? You need to cut a circular cut in a shower fixture. This is what's called a mud cap. So what this does is it protects all your fancy shower fixture components and that type of thing until you're ready to actually take it off and put on the discussion and all that stuff at the end of the job. And this simply, I mean, you've probably seen it before if you've done a renovation, but it simply is part of your shower fixture when you take it out of the box. I look for this right away because I'm plumbing in the shower fixture right away, and I want this on right away because the edge here is going to tell me where the last part of my finished wall can be, which is usually the edge of your mud cap. So the mud caps are a very important feature of doing tile work, and sometimes you can guess where your center is. These are typically about 5 1/4 around, and if you had one of those old-fashioned, what are they called, you know, that have a little center point here and then with a pencil on the end of it, a radius, then you could probably do it that way, although trying to get that center piece onto a slippery tile is not the easiest thing. So what I've done is I've saved mud caps over the years. Typically what you see where the screws go in is you see this little excess part of the plastic part, and that's where the screws actually fit in to hold the mud cap to the tile fixture. So what I've done is I've taken one scrap one and I've got myself a saw, and I just cut off those little excess pieces so that this is flush. So when I want to do a cut around it, I just figure out where the bottom part is excuse me, where the bottom part measurement would be that I start with, and then maybe one side. So once I know the bottom and one side, I can simply put that to where it matches up the bottom and one side, and then I simply mark around it. Pencils don't always work, which is why I also suggest a magic marker, crayon, grease pencil, something. But basically you get the gist. So now you have a perfectly measured circle, exactly where you want it. It might be dead center of the tile, it may not be. In this case it's not. But regardless, that's the easiest way to measure, just by having yourself a little cheat sheet. Again, just a little trick of the trade to make it easier to mark your thing. So again, as I was saying before on the other part of the video, you actually want to cut along your line. You don't want to go inside of the line, you'll be too short. You don't want to go too far outside of the line, because you know, then you'll have too much of a gap. So if you want to get a perfect cut, then you want to cut right along your line all the way around. Now again, this can be cut in a lot of different ways. Obviously if you're dealing with a larger tile, then you would cut this with well, I use a tile saw, but you could cut this a lot of different ways, and one of them would be a grinder, right? So you could actually put this on a piece of plywood and somehow anchor it down, get your grinder out, and you can kind of make your round cut with a grinder. I prefer the tile saw. It comes off in easier pieces for me. that's basically it. This piece kind of dropped off of there. I'm not going to bother cutting. Well, I could. Hold on. So that would fit in there like that. Obviously you saw where it kind of caught the saw and kind of tore off in my hand. So I'd probably do this cut again if it was a real job. But that's basically what you're looking at. So where are my pieces at? This is the one that I was using. And we have a little small cut there. And that's the template that I was using to make that happen. So you can see it's a pretty fairly decent cut for, you know, just a couple of minutes on the tile saw. I see some videos out there where they're actually using the grinder, and by the time I set up the grinder and set up a piece of plywood or something to grind it onto, etc., and kick up all the dust and pull out an extension cord, I may as well just use my saw, which is why I always prefer this method over the grinder method, and one of the reasons I'm not showing the grinder method. But that's a little trick of the trade too. To have a template makes your job go so much easier. Speaking of which, I'm going to show another template that I used. So you're doing a floor, and on the floor you have a toilet and you have the circular, either a 3-inch or 4-inch cut you got to do around the toilet flange, right? So whether there's a flange there or not, if there's not a flange there currently, then it's pretty much a no-brainer. You just cut around, circle or the hole, and it could be a 3 or 4-inch. Again, you could have a template for that. But if you have the flange that's on the toilet already, and however your tile ends up being on that flange, you want to be able to mark it correctly. And so again, the same thing applies. You mark to the left and the right. So maybe you have an inch off of on your tile that you mark onto your tile because it's an inch away from where your toilet flange starts, and then over here on this side you have 3 inches. So you mark there. So you have 2 spots to go from, and then you use what I have is just an extra toilet flange, right? They're all the same size, and then you just put that on top of the tile and mark around it, and you have a perfect circle, same as I just did with that mud cap on there, that mud guard. And I carry this thing with me all the time. It never goes on a toilet. It gets used as a template to cut around a toilet, and that makes life much easier too, so that you're not guessing or trying to figure out exactly where your circle is going to go, or that you have a perfect circle, because this will give you the perfect circle you need. And that's just a couple of tips. If I think of any more, I will do another video.